Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a late night edition of the Ignition News. We're coming at you late on the night of January 4th, 2026 with stories, context, and information that matters. We've got a big late night show tonight. We're going to talk about the economy. We're going to talk about what's happening, obviously, the continued developments in Venezuela. And then we're going to talk about what's next for the Ignition News. Then we're going to close it out with some important information about what's happening in Gaza, and we're going to tie together a lot of information. So good evening. Let's first start out our first story on the Ignition News tonight with the economy. First story, we want you to kind of know something right off the bat. When people tell you that the economy is doing great and you're sitting at home and you're wondering to yourself, how are you going to afford groceries tonight? You're not wrong. You're not crazy. And here's what's happening. On paper, the official numbers look pretty good. GDP, or gross domestic product, grew at 4.3% in the third quarter of 2025. That's actually impressive numbers-wise. Unemployment is hovering around 4.2%, which in any other era would have people very happy. Of course, the stock market is once again at record highs, and inflation has cooled from its peak of 9.1% all the way down to somewhere in the 3% range. The president gave this is not a joke. The president gave the economy an A+++++ rating. That's not a joke. 5 pluses. And that is how out of touch we're talking about here. That's how out of touch the president of the United States of America is. Here's the thing that's critical, though. 68% of Americans say economic conditions are getting worse. Not staying bad, they're getting worse. And this is according to the most recent Gallup poll from late 2025. How many of you have heard of the K-shaped economy? How many of you know what the K-shaped economy is? Well, the K-shaped economy is essentially a split between the economic conditions of us, all of us, and the wealthy. That is split in different directions. It's a cute name. It sounds nice, but what it's actually describing is how the people on the bottom, us, are struggling while the people at the very top are exceeding. They're doing quite well. If you're wealthy, if you own stocks, or if you work in finance or tech, your wealth is going up. But if you're working class, if you're middle class, you're struggling more than you ever have. Inflation has technically cooled, yes. But what they're not telling you as they celebrate these numbers is it hasn't come down. It just hasn't stopped rising as fast, okay? So if you were paying $1,200 a month rent in 2019, and now it's jumped to $1,800, the fact that it's only going up to $1,850, that's not a victory. That's not a win. That is not inflation cooling down. That's you having to scrounge around for another $50. Data centers powering AI are sucking up so much electricity that your power bills are going up to subsidize that. And in December, consumer confidence, as according to the University of Michigan, was 53.3. Do you know when it was last that low? June 2022, when inflation was at a 4-decade high. And the reality of that, and the reason for that, is that the damage has been done. Wages are now only starting to catch up with inflation. And Jerome Powell himself said, and I quote, "We're going to need to have some years with a Y, where normal wages are higher than inflation for people to start feeling good about affordability." He said years, not months. Household debt hit a record high of $18.59 trillion in 2025. That means people are not thriving. This matters because obviously the right-wing narrative, the narrative from the president, is all about everything's good, everything's great, the economy's great, affordability is a hoax. Half of Americans feel like their financial security is deteriorating. Women, by the way, are reporting darker economic sentiment than men. Black and Hispanic respondents are far more likely than white respondents to say the economy is retracting, and nearly 60% of all households earning under $50,000 say their financial security is getting worse. Only 37% of respondents earning over $100,000 say the same. Here's what I want you to remember. The struggle is real. The data isn't lying. It's telling the truth. The economy isn't growing because it doesn't feel like it's growing. And as all things economy go, how you feel makes a big difference. The wealthy are doing better than they ever have before. And for all of you, regardless of whether it's Iowa, Ohio, Las Vegas, whether you live in Florida, whether you live in Canada, what I'm seeing, and I suspect you're seeing as well, is in those very wealthy, very gated communities, the kind of communities that have a gate and then a security guard and then another gate, they're doing quite well. They're repaving the streets. They're getting new furniture. They're getting new appliances. There's a place in Las Vegas here where I go to frequently because of work, and they gutted out a whole lake. They made a fake lake, and they gutted out the whole lake, and they're making a brand new whole-ass fake lake in the middle of Las Vegas because the old one didn't, I guess, make the rich people feel good enough about their fake lake. The point is, these people are doing really, really, really well, while the rest of us are struggling. And you have to acknowledge that the reason they're doing well is because they're standing on our backs to do it. Let's get to the next story. Welcome, everyone, to the Ignition News. The Ignition News is part of the Rebel Radio Network. Hi, over on TikTok. Good to see you. And we are your unfiltered, unvarnished source of actual news, what's really happening in the United States of America. We're streaming live on TikTok, Instagram, and live on Spotify right now. Let's talk about, obviously, the big story of the day, the big story of the week, Venezuela. So obviously, early January 3rd, the United States forces conducted airstrikes and military strikes in Venezuela's capital city of Caracas. And yes, they abducted the Venezuelan president, Nicolás Maduro, and his wife. They were flown to New York and now face narco-terrorism charges in federal court. Something that they're not talking about in the regular news is that 40 people were likely killed in these strikes. Now, before we go any farther, before we go any farther, let me be very clear. I'm not here to defend Nicolás Maduro, okay? Obviously, the man's a dictator. His government has been credibly accused of human rights violations. And the narco-terrorism charges, okay, whether they're legitimate or not, none of that is the point. The point is, the president's actions were illegal and unconstitutional. According to multiple constitutional scholars, legal experts, and even Republicans, the president acted illegally. Of course, obviously, the president announced that now we, the United States of America, we're going to be running Venezuela. We can't even run the United States of America right now, but apparently we're running Venezuela until, as he says, a proper transition takes place. Those are his words, not mine. So we're about to spend billions of dollars running a foreign country while you struggle. This is not a question. Let me pull it up here. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. Article 1 gives the Congress, not the president, the power to declare war. There was a War Powers Resolution, 1973, that allows the president to take limited military action in emergencies, but it requires congressional notification and approval for sustained operations. So do you see how we've broken through the nonsense here? If we plan on engaging Venezuela long term, the president has to have congressional approval. This is why we do the Ignition News, to inform and to update people, because we understand. I know you're very busy. I know you've got a lot of things going on. So when you have the conversation with your mom or your grandma or your dad, inform them of this. Article 1, Section 8. Okay. And then, of course, they're going to say, but Obama did this. Do I look like I'm here talking about Obama or Biden for that matter? That's not the point. This is not the Obama did great show. This is the Ignition News. It's about the truth. It's about what we can, it's about the country. Let's continue. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer took a short break from his glasses falling to the peak of his nose, along with House Majority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, to issue a joint statement. They are going to bring Congress together next week, a week after the strikes happened. So Congress is sitting on their heels. The president's engaging in illegal military activity. But there are some things I want you to know about. In spite of the relative gelatinous spine that Congress has had so far, we are starting to see some indications that Congress might be prepared to take action. Here's what we're seeing. Representative Ramirez says Trump must be impeached. She called it war crimes to seize Venezuelan oil. Maxine Waters. Today, many Democrats have understandably questioned whether impeachment is possible again under the current political reality. I am reconsidering that view. Okay, Maxine, I'll give you that one. So the point here is, even though you might feel hopeless, we are starting to see that there is some hardening of the spine. You got Dan Goldman out there saying that this is a violation of the United States Constitution. It's an impeachable offense. So my point here is that even though it seems like a gross and horrific violation of the Constitution, and even though Democrats have yet to find their spine, there are people openly talking about impeaching the president of the United States. And I think that we might find ourselves at a real reality point here. Let's go to the next story. Welcome, everyone, to the Ignition News. It's good to have you on the show tonight. We're recording a late night show of the Ignition News on our nightly show, Rebel Radio. And I do want to talk about an important story. And it's one where I hate to say this, but I told you so. It's about Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. I've taken a lot of shit this week because I've been talking about the damage that's been inflicted on the Minnesota governor as a result of the scandal with the funds that have been obviously stolen, the scandal regarding, what's his name, Nick Shirley. The Republicans are really laser focused on Tim Walz. And I got to tell you, I took a lot of shit this week. A lot of shit because I said Tim Walz is politically done. I literally said this. You can go see the thread. I said Tim Walz is politically done. I said he's done politically. And this is not a conversation about it's not a conversation about Tim and what he did. The conversation is the reality of understanding the moment. And I can see the reality of the situation. And as I said earlier this week, much to constant agitation, I said he's done. Tim Walz is done. Okay? Oh, you're terrible. F you, all this stuff. People said, oh, Our next story. Tim Walz might be about to drop out of the 2026 governor's race. Political insider Blois Olson, that is a Minnesota name if I've ever heard one. Blois Olson, that is a fucking Minnesota name, everybody. Blois Olson reported Sunday that Walz is likely to announce Monday that he's dropping out of the race. Walz has scheduled an 11 a.m. news conference to discuss the news of the day, which is classic political speak for I'm about to deliver bad news. Walz was Kamala Harris's VP, obviously, for 2024. Kamala Harris has openly been distancing herself from Walz, and he's had plummeting approval ratings as a result of this scandal. His approval ratings are 47-47, and that's a big drop from him being plus 19. Listen, I'm not gonna expand on that. The reality is, when we're talking about fighting fascism in America, you have to understand the playing field that you're on, okay? You have to understand the playing field. The reality is, Walz has positioned himself in the middle of a massive scandal, and it's not going very well. The president, J.D. Vance, this Nick Shirley kid, the entire Republican apparatus is focusing their efforts on Tim Walz right now, and Tim Walz doesn't seem to be able to hold up to all of this heat. And I literally said this. I said, Tim Walz is politically done. Everyone said I was crazy. You want to know the shit I got in for saying Tim Walz is politically done? It sounds like on Monday he's getting ready to tell us exactly that. We'll see if I have to delete this episode if I'm wrong. David Schultz, a professor of political science at Hamline University, Newsweek, he viewed Walz as a clear star of the Democratic Party following the 2022 and 2023 legislative session. But that assessment has changed dramatically as the fraud issue has become central to how his record and legacy are now being evaluated. Schultz said, at this point, Walz is clearly the underdog and faces significant obstacles to re-election. Why am I bringing this story up? I'm bringing this story up because I was right, and everyone treated me like shit for saying this at the time. It doesn't matter how he handled it. It doesn't matter if he did everything right. The reality is he put himself in the wrong point of political gravity, and he did not handle it well. And it doesn't matter in America if you're right. It matters if people think you're right. That's just the fucking reality. And Tim Walz was not able to bring to the table the defense. And I'll say this too, and I know it's unpopular, but when Tim Walz debated J.D. Vance, Tim Walz lost the debate to J.D. Vance. And I know that. People hate me when I say that. He lost the debate to J.D. Vance. He stunted the momentum that Kamala Harris and his ticket had. The best thing Tim Walz ever did was go out and call J.D. Vance a weirdo. It was huge momentum. That was the most momentum the Democratic Party has had in 10 years, was Tim Walz getting on national television calling J.D. Vance a weirdo. And then someone whispered in his ear and said, oh no, don't call him a weirdo. That's not how we want to do this. He stopped doing it and they lost. And then Tim Walz tried to go up and debate a sycophantic serial liar and he lost. Tim Walz lost the debate to J.D. Vance and he stunted the momentum of Kamala Harris's campaign. Now he's kind of been put in this lose-lose situation. This video from Nick Shirley's been viewed 142 million times. The point I'm trying to make is simple. The point I'm trying to make is this. We do not live in 1990 in Bill Clinton's political party. We live in 2025 with the ascendance of Christian nationalist fascism. It's happening here, now. Are you ready to play that game or not? You can't play the game fighting Christian nationalist fascism, thank you, 2026. You can't play that game like you're on C-SPAN in 1995 arguing with Denny Hassert and Bill Clinton. It's stupid. And yes, do I think Tim Walz is a nice guy? Of course, it doesn't matter if Tim Walz is a nice guy because he hasn't been able to defend himself against the onslaught of fascism. The president, J.D. Vance, this Nick Shirley kid, 42 million views on YouTube, much more than that on Twitter. People don't understand. This is the digital battlefield that we're in right now. If you can't win on the digital battlefield, every argument that you're trying to have loses along with you. We don't know if it's $100 million or $1 billion or $9 billion in fraud. We don't know. But you know who also doesn't know? And where I'm going to close this segment, do you know who else doesn't know? Chat, I don't know if it's 100 million. I don't know if it's a billion. I don't know if it's 9 billion. Do you know who else doesn't know? Tim Walz doesn't know. And that's the problem. As nice as he is, as great of a coach as he was, as great as he's been to the state of Minnesota, he doesn't know. And whether it's $100 million or $1 billion, or whether that's $9 billion, you can't just say, oh, it's $1 billion. When we just talk about these economic statistics, we just talk about how many Americans are struggling. Americans in this country at this time, whether you think it's right or not, whether you think it's okay or not, Americans who have to struggle to pay the power bill fundamentally see this situation and they say, people are stealing from me and I can't even pay the power bill. And it doesn't matter if they're Democrat, Republican, Independent, any of those things. If you mess up, people mess up and they understand that. But unfortunately, Tim Walz hasn't been able to come and step up. And yes, I said this, and yes, I got a lot of criticism for this. But you know what? My favorite time on the internet is when I get ratioed. I got ratioed, and guess what? I was right. We'll know more after the press conference on Monday. We'll know more. Welcome to the Ignition News, everyone. It's great to have you. I know it's a little bit controversial tonight. We talked about a lot of things. The next thing I want to talk about, because I'm trying to keep the show a little bit shorter tonight because it is late in the night. I do want to talk about, obviously, about what's happening in Venezuela. And I sparked a little bit of a conversation in a different setting, so I'm going to pull that up right now. But I want to share this with you both for our live viewers tonight, and I want to share it for you on Ignition News. So let me go ahead and kick this over here. And I want to talk to you about something that I've been hearing a lot that really kind of pisses me off. And that is the conversation about, well, what can Democrats do? What can Democrats do? How many of you have said, oh, I wish the Democrats would do something? Or you've heard some version of that. I'm going to pull this up. Or you say, go do something. And then Hakeem Jeffries says, oh, I can't do anything. There's nothing I can do. We're in the minority, right? Well, I did some research today for what is now a very viral thread on Threads. And obviously, a lot of people found it interesting. So I wanted to talk about that. And I wanted to explain to you when the Democrats say, we can't do anything, we don't have control of Congress, we're the minority. They say, well, we can't do anything. I want to really challenge you on this. I want to tell you tonight on the Ignition News, what can they do? So let's talk about it. Before I get into that, I do want to talk about a couple things. Number one, thank you for following the Ignition News. It's really good to have you here. If you like what we're doing, I'm really glad that you're watching. I do need you to go ahead and find the Ignition News on your favorite platform, that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, because it takes a lot of work to do this. And I need you to follow along the show. We've grown our subscribers to the Ignition News. We quadrupled them just this week alone. The episode from this morning was viewed 4 times more than the episode on Wednesday. So I'm pretty proud of that. So we're growing this thing really fast, but we got to keep pushing. So if you're watching on TikTok right now, please go ahead and take a brief pause. Go ahead and click on my profile. Go find the Ignition News on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or YouTube. Go ahead and click that subscribe button as well. The next thing is our show is sponsored. We've got a couple sponsors tonight. I want to point that out. Our show is sponsored by our signature podcast, Ignite, Fighting Fascism in the Age of Its Rise. But also, we've got a couple sponsors who kicked in on the Buy Me a Coffee site. So I just want to recognize a couple people. One of them is watching the show. So I want to say thank you. We got a couple sponsors. Claudia, thank you for sponsoring the show. Alicia, thank you for sponsoring the show. I want to say thank you to Potato, who kicked in some nice sponsorship for the show as well. It really does help a lot when you kick in. and it really means a lot to me. So you've got some special swag headed your way. I really appreciate that. And if you do want to support the show, the link is also in the bio for you to be able to do that. But the best way you can support the show, I mean, obviously money's great, but follow the show on Spotify or Apple or wherever else. Okay. So now on to the main subject. When the Democrats say to you, what can we do to fight this? We can't do anything. We can't do anything. So I did a lot of research on this today, and I want to really dissect that narrative for you. It's the last story of the night. So here we go. This is I can officially say this is a viral thread on Threads. Here we go. Here are the things Democrats can do to stop Trump without power. When they tell you they can't do anything, reference these tactics. Number 1, quorum calls. Demand proof that enough members are present. That requires 218 members present. Force delays and require the majority to round up their members. This can be called repeatedly. Number 2, roll call votes. Instead of voice votes, demand recorded votes. This makes every Republican go on record for unpopular positions every single time. This forces their vote for their own public accountability. A lot of times they're doing voice votes because they don't want to be on the record. Number 3, points of order. Challenge rule violations, procedural errors, germaneness of amendments. Each one requires the chair to rule. It requires delay, and this can expose overreach from the majority. Number 4, motion to table. When Republicans offer amendments or motions, move to table them, force the vote, burn floor time, and that also creates records of what they're trying to do. Number 5, demand reading of bills. This is rarely used, but it's very powerful because it's a delay tactic. Requires bills to be read aloud in full. A 1,000-page bill, that is like 20 hours of delay. And so you say to yourself, how many people can you save with 20 hours? Well, okay. Number 5, the majority, they can't block this, but they can make it really, really painful. They can do hearings. They can demand testimony from experts. They can offer amendments, even though the amendments aren't going to pass. And they can use procedural appeals to delay markups. So when Democrats say, oh, we can't really do anything. Oh, there's a lot that they can do. Those things that I just mentioned, by the way, on Threads, I'm just going to read some things that people say on Threads. They're like, well, what if the Republicans do this? It's going to slow. That's what the Republicans do. That's what they did. Where do you think I got the playbook from? The point is, Democrats are telling you that they can't do anything, and we're letting them get away with it. And I think that's a fool's narrative. I think it's a fool's errand as well. So that's available on Threads if you want to find it. That would be great. Anyways, look, it generated a highlight for us. That's neat. The point is, we are allowing ourselves to accept this statement, oh, we can't do anything because we're not in the majority, when we've seen Republicans do a lot of damage when they were in the minority. The simple fact is, if your Republican rep or the person you're making phone calls says, oh, we can't do anything, just go copy the threads and send it to them. Copy the threads and send it to them. All right. That concludes our recording of the news, everybody. This is the Ignition News. Thank you for following along. Thank you for watching on Spotify. Thank you for watching on Instagram. Thank you for watching on TikTok Live. We're posting a very late night session, so we're going to end the recording right there. Say thank you for tuning along. The Ignition News is brought to you by the Rebel Radio Network, your daily source for updates, unfiltered, and uncensored news. Please consider following us at Spotify, Substack, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts. And to support the show, go to theignition.news. Theignition.news. Your support helps to keep us in the know and to keep your information flowing on our daily news source. Thank you for following today's episode of The Ignition News. We'll see you tomorrow.